Marginality, a critical review of the concept. This is the article we are going to do, marginality, a critical review of the concept. Charles Verghese and Sheetal S. Kumar. Now, I read the abstract. Marginality is a widely used concept in literature on inequality and development. It has gained momentum, especially in the context of rising inequality in the post-liberalized and globalized world. Let me just draw some lines so you will find it more interesting and attractive. So this article looks into the evolution of marginality. This article looks into the evolution of marginality, analyzes its role in the development of discourse, and argues that the interrelation between objective and subjective aspects of marginality, of the idea of it. So here in this paragraph we are going to do subjective and objective aspects of marginality. Let me just write down subjective and objective aspects. Okay, so this here we are going to talk about the subjective and the objective aspects of marginality, and this point is here. This objective and subjective aspects of marginality. This discussion identifies marginality as a measure of inequality in given social context and time, and indicate the degree of inequality experienced by individuals. So how this degree of inequality, you remember this. In any given society, if a person is feeling left out, if a person is feeling not heard, if a person is feeling excluded, if a person is feeling not attached to any kind of social, cultural, economic and all other developments of the society which is going on. For example, if a housing scheme is there for the government and the person is not able to enroll or get the house, or maybe is not able to establish his or her eligibility despite being eligible, that is what exclusion. If a woman is there and she is working in somewhere and she finds that people are not listening her, she is not able to express her pain and suffering, and she is not able to participate, or moreover in the given circumstances when she is in office or any workplace, she is not able to deliver the best of her. Maybe there are fears, maybe there are insult, abuse. So these are the exclusion. So this marginalization can happen at every step, even if your body language, your hand gesture, your eyes, widening of your eyes, and having a very heavy and arrogant tone while speaking to somebody. All these are the things which are included in the marginalization, how we exclude people. So then and one more thing which is very common in Indian politics and in work culture, that people will be very sweet and kind to on your face, but at the back of you they are working against you. For example, you are eligible for any name in the committee and your name is not been included. You are best, you can do something in the department or in your workplace and your name is not being included, or maybe excluded. Silently your name is being removed. So these are the multiple things which actually make you feel that you are excluded. And the first part look into the change in meaning component of marginality. The second part discuss marginality with other closely related concepts such as exclusion, poverty and culture of poverty and precarity. The third part engage with the constituents of the marginal situation. Fourth part discuss different typologies available to understand the dimension of marginality. So here we are going to discuss about four aspects. The first part, then the second part, then the third part, and finally fourth part. So what is this? What are the, because these all the four parts are associated with marginality. So let's look at it. First part talk about the change in meaning components of marginality. So the first part is talking about the meaning. Okay. So here I underline that is what discuss the meaning and component of marginality. The first part is talking about the meaning and component of marginality. The things which I'm asking you to focus, please focus. So this is the first part. Okay, first part is look into the change and meaning, meaning and component. Change in the meaning and component of marginality. Do we find that the meaning of the marginality has changed? So this is the first part. First of all, we have to see the meaning, and that's very true. Everything starts with the meaning. What is this? Let's understand first. Then the second part talk about the discusses marginality with other closely related concepts such as exclusion, poverty, the culture of poverty and precarity. So this is the second portion. Second part talk about these are maybe the ladders or the criteria which we can say. Let's say exclusion, poverty, the culture of poverty and precarity. There is a serious culture of poverty and there are a systematic upliftment from the poverty. The third part talk about engage with the constituent of marginal situation. Constituents of marginal situation, and the fourth aspect talk about the different typologies available to understand the dimension of marginality. So these are the four things which we need to understand. First is talking about the change. Do we see that from the beginning to till this concept of marginality came in the frame, or from the primary sources, or from when the first book on the marginality was written, or first kind of marginality was understood. After that, do we find that there is a lot of change in the components? The second, we can discuss it with the closely related concepts such as exclusion, poverty, culture of poverty and precarity. Third, engage with the constituent of marginal situation. Fourth is discuss different typologies available to understand the dimensions of marginality. I have colored it in a different way, so you can actually understand it in a very better way. So when you are going for this, just read this paragraph again, and you can, because when you are writing this in your answer, for example, if you are writing all the four aspects or four parts of marginality, that is going to help you in a great way. Moreover, you can actually quote this article also. So that's how. Let's come to the introduction of marginality. So my concern would be most of the time reading somewhere, wherever I feel, I'll just try to explain it. In common parlance, the term marginalized refers to people or communities on the lower spectrum of the hierarchy in terms of economic, social and cultural resources or power. So primarily these are the broader aspect, extremely broader aspect. What we need to go for this is marginality is its economic, social and cultural. Whatever the resources which are available on the basis of economy, society and culture. If you are part of that power center, if you are part of that sharing economy, you are sharing the economy, you are getting growth of the economy of the country, you are getting job, you have property, you have business which is growing, and you have proper income, so your livelihood is not a worry for you. And in society you are being included, you are being called by the people, you are participating in the marriage function, all other aspects of the society. From the cultural aspect, whatever your language, your culture, your food habits, whatever it is there, people, you are a part of the larger community, and even if you are not the part of the larger community, you are not being excluded. You are not being excluded. For example, whatever may be your food habits, there is not a culture in your country which is criticizing this kind of food habit. Maybe your festivals, your dressing, or your language, anything which you find is a part of you is also being appreciated, included and participated by the country people. That is what you feel included, and that is how your family, your culture, your society also feel participation, and moreover it boosts your ego, your self-confidence and your existence in the society, where we have almost I think more than 1,000 people are there, hundreds of households are there, and thousands of people are there. That's, I'm talking pretty long back. Right now the population might have increased, and definitely in many fold. But during my stay, when I was in my village, and I was not very, I was very young, but I could understand those, and it was a Kanjar community. They are tribals, they are known as tribals. So whenever they are coming to this market, there was a small market in our village. So whenever these Kanjar ladies are coming, Kanjar men are coming, they used to speak in a different language. Like, there was something like that. Ahalya. Kya kar raha? Ahalya. It's something like that. And they had a very peculiar culture where, every single day those ladies will come to the market and they will buy this grocery every single day. So by that time it was 1 rupee, and in 1 rupee is constituted of 16 anna. So she will buy a very small amount of grocery. For example, 1 आना की हल्दी, 1 आना की धनिया, 1 आना का नमक, 1 आना का तेल, ऐसे. So within 1 rupee she would buy her grocery. And what I realized, that even if the shopkeeper, even if the people, anybody who is there in the market or which is a non-Kanjar, they will always be humiliating them, making mockery, talking about their dress, their language. So, and they were always scared of coming to market. So, although they are part of economy, because every single day, even if 100 of Kanjars are coming, and even if one person is buying 1 rupee stuff, it means 100 rupee economy they are circulating every single day. And that's a mobility of economy they are establishing. But still, they will be mocked, the women will be abused, and the children will be insulted. So, and that is how I saw it. It was very, very personally I saw it. So that's how, if you are culturally, you are excluded. If you are socially, you are excluded. And I think in my village, it never happened that their festivals are being celebrated. Other than non-cultural community are going there, participating in their marriages, their festivals, their celebrations, or even in their death and sorrows. So this kind of culture, where your language is being targeted, your dressing, your food habits, your festivals, everything is being looked down. People definitely feel insulted and abused. So that's how we need to remove this kind of, and that is how the marginalization is there. Of a group's chance of dignified life with their counterparts. The term marginality is not used in its economic sense of the term, but refer to relative locations of the communities in the geographical, political, social or cultural spaces. These spaces assumes importance because the environment that shapes their actors is graded and endowed with differential resources. Therefore, margin is often defined in a relation to a center or reference. You know how this center is there. Like this is, if I say this is your page. So this is center. The area which is coming here, this is the area. This is center. So it means it is having the center space. And these are the dotted area is margin. And they are not being talked about. Their culture, their economy, their festivals, their society, nothing is important for this center. So this is what you need to understand. Okay. The following discussion tries to understand how concept of marginality has been perceived and used in social science literature over a period of time. The article attempts to look into the meaning of marginality and factors constituting a different level, political and economic factors to a subjective personhood. The dialectical relationship between the objective condition of the marginality, which is termed marginal situation, and subjective experience of marginality. So we are going to do two things here. One is a subjective experience, where personally we can talk about the example which I gave you, and the other is the objective. Even if you are not part of that community, society or situation, but still you can understand that this is how marginalized section is there. The way women are being raped in Delhi. the way women are being excluded in Delhi. If you go to market, if you go to road, mostly men's, they stand anywhere and start urinating. That create a very embarrassing situation for women. But we cannot say anything. We cannot do anything. So that's how we need to talk about this issue. Okay? Now, right. So, which is term marginal personality is explored. The article argues that marginality can be measured of degree of equality in a given social context and time, and it can have a significant implications for development policy debate. The meaning of marginality. One of the early reference to marginality was a symbol. This book you need to understand. If it is possible, I'll try to give you the reference also, or maybe a link in the description, where he mentioned mental life in metropolis. There has been indirect mentions of marginality in many classical thinkers like Jenkins, a symbol, Park and a Stonquist engage in pioneering discussion that directly mention marginality. When you are writing your answer, dear friends, my dear students, please mention the books and the titles and the writers of these primer. If you are writing this, if you are suggesting you are writing in this way, it will definitely help you to get much better marks. Park and Stonquist engaged in pioneering discussion that directly mention marginality. In his work, Park 1928 tries to look at the question of marginality more from an individual perspective in the context of intellectual, intercultural contact. Explain that the state of living and sharing intimately in the cultural life of the two people. Park notes that those in subordinate position in culture context try to emulate the dominant group to raise their status, later termed in the Indian context sensitization by M. N. Srinivas. However, if the individual fails to get acceptance and desired status in this attempt, it will lead to disappointment and frustration. Park in his 1928 work, Human Migration and Marginalized Man, notes. So this is the book which we are talking about here, 1928 Park, is the book that is Human Migration and Marginal Man. This is the book which you have to give reference for your answer also. And I quote here from this book. One of the consequences of margin is to create a situation in which the same individual, who may or may not be mixed blood, finds himself striving to live into two diverse cultural groups. The effect is to produce an unstable character, a personality type and characteristics forms of behavior. This is the marginal man. It is in the mind of the marginal man that conflicting cultures meet and fuse. I repeat again because it's very significant. This is on page number 81. One of the consequences of migration is to create a situation in which the same individual, who may or may not be a mixed blood, finds himself striving to live into two diverse cultures. You know what? When a person is migrating, for example, any Indian is going to USA, UK or any other part of the country where they struggle to get involved in the mainstream. Mainstream means the dominant culture of that country. So one is their ethics, for example, the worship, the pattern of worship. The country where the host country is having a different kind of worshipping pattern, and this person who migrated must be having a different. So there is a contradiction. Then the food habits. The mainstream, the host country is having a different food culture habit, and this person is being brought up or trained in a different kind of food habits. Clothing pattern. Then the language. So there are many multiple layers are there where a person who migrated from one place is find difficult enough to adjust. For example, the children, and how the children would get involved. So then the children has to get lot of abuse and insult and exclusion. So there are the person who migrated from one place to another is finding two kind of culture, where one is his own culture which is being brought up and he personalized in his life, and the other is the host country culture. So there he finds a struggle to mix up. That is what, and it creates a kind of unstable character. The person will be more confused, more scared, more, and that is known as a marginalized man. It is the mind of the marginal man that conflicting culture meet and fuse. So gradually fusing means some of the aspects is trying to adjust, okay, and some are there excluded enough. On a similar note, Stonquist, you note this writer and please write it in your answer, argues that the social and cultural conflict between different communities lead to a marginal situation for their member. He focuses on the ambivalence of the actors who happen to be in intercultural context. He notes, the marginal man is poised in psychological uncertainty between two or more social worlds, reflecting in his soul the discords and harmonies, repulsion and attractions of these worlds, one of which is often dominant over the other, within which a membership is implicitly, if not explicitly, based upon birth or ancestry, race or nationality, and where exclusion removes the individual from system of group relations. So here Stonquist talk about how the cultural conflicts between the two communities lead to marginal situation for their member. So for example, one is the host country, where the dominant culture is to majority of people are practicing same kind of culture, practice, habit, food habits, clothing patterns, language, and all other. Even they are having a greater share in the economy and participation. And the other guest, the person who has migrated, they find it difficult because they have carried, their birth identity, their ancestry. Maybe they belong to a particular race or particular nationality. So where the individual or the group are being, they feel excluded, and that is a struggle to get involved. So why the person has migrated? Maybe because of the job or some natural calamity or something like that. Both Park and Stonquist emphasize situation where the cultural membership is understood in terms of birth and the case such as race, caste or nationality, which was readily identified an outsider in the context of intercultural context. More importantly, Stonquist identifies dominance of one culture. Definitely, the person who has come with a host country is marginalized because the dominant culture is something different, where it has to identify, either feel excluded or identify. And then many times it happens, it's a kind of cultural psychological conflict, When a person is feeling that for the survival or for this adjustment, if they adopt the maximum culture and society and aspects of the host country, they find that they will be losing their identity. So this conflict is always there in the mind. Other than that, mere contact of two different culture in producing marginality, according to Stonquist. When the individual desires to assimilate but it rejected by the host, it creates anxiety, divide loyalty and inferiority complex. So, for example, one person is trying to, get involved. Maybe they are losing their own inherited culture, language and all, and they are learning everything related to host country. But if the host country do not assimilate them, or they are being rejected, or they are being made to feel inferior, then it creates anxiety, and the creating a loyalty for the host country will be difficult, and the person will be creating inferiority complex in his mind. This can cause mental illness or other expression of personal dysfunction like criminal action. Therefore, this intercultural contact and resultant personal level discourse, especially of the individuals belong to the subjugated culture, afford the set of framework called the Park, Stonquist framework of marginality. So you know what, I give you one example. That is why the international community is very careful while they are setting the regulations for the refugees. For example, the people, it could be due to natural calamity or some internal disturbances in the country or some ethnic conflict, or so it could be any reason when people leave their own country and they migrate to the host country. So that is why when these regulations are being laid down, I think the people from the intellectual community or the society, those who are particularly studying anthropology and the sociology, they are very much careful that, as a human being, they must be included. If there is a lot of exclusion, or there is a lot of, conflict, then it could cause the criminal action, increase of the criminal activities. Because, anybody who is there on the earth, any human being, they desire to be respected and included. And if the host country is not including and excluding, ultimately the community which is being excluded, they, because it's already told, it can cause mental illness, it can cause personal dysfunctional criminal action. So if the inclusion is not given, then the community, the community who is migrated or the displaced community could create such kind of behavior where it can affect the host as well as the migrated community as well. Some of the latest studies have gone a little further from the membership by birth, dominance of culture emphasized by Park and Stonehurst framework of marginality. They have suggested that the orientation of the marginal person towards one or the non-marginal group, the permeability of barriers between the groups and the marginal status and of the group together will create marginal personality traits such as self-pity, insecurity and sensitivity. We have to remember one thing very clearly. As a human being, whether you are displaced, whether you are migrant, whether you are a male or female, whether you are a host country or you are whatever it is there, let's take human beings. Any human in whatever given circumstances, geography or any culture, any place, any time, if the people feel excluded, if they are not being included, because we all say that humans are the social animal. So if they are not being part of the society where they are residing, and if they have a feeling of self-pity, remember this thing very clearly, self-pity, insecurity, sensitivity, right? And then this is here again, this inferiority complex. These are the mental thoughts and the mental states. If they are going through this kind of, we cannot expect better behavior from such people who are going through exclusion, anxiety, self-pity, insecurity, sensitivity and inferior complex. So kindly remember this thing. Apart from these old policies and borders and politics and country security and all, we need to remember that these are the human beings and they need to be treated equally. So it all depends on so that is why those who talk about the human rights, those who are careful about human rights, they always focus on such areas where if you want to have people loyal for your country, if you want to have people, they are, creating lot of hard work and they are creating resources for your country, we should give them respect, dignity, their worth, whatever they are there. They need to realize that they are worth, and then you will find that they are contributing in the economy and in the society of that country. And individuals' conscious decisions to choose between the two groups assumes prominence in marginal question. From this point, marginal person is understood as someone who consider a dominant group as the reference group of which she is not a member. That again this is a exclusion. So when we make them to feel that you are not part of this, okay, you are not part of this, you are not part of dominant group or you are not part of this, it creates a serious anxiety and dissatisfaction. Using this framework, Mann 1958 identifies that the extreme symptoms of psychological marginalized among black people are the product of association between the orientation towards the appearance of the white attitude towards barriers. So, because you are a student of literature and you have done all this in your undergraduation, post-graduation, and we have thoroughly studied African American literature. Most of the African American literature is talking about exclusion, how they are not being assimilated, how they are not being part of American culture. And that is how, if you see the narratives which we see in African American community, you will always find that there is a part of exclusion. And that is what is this? I again repeat here, identifies the extreme symptoms of psychological marginality among black people are the product of association between the orientation towards appearance of white, attitude towards barriers. Here I would like to suggest one more writer, and that is Coetzee, James Coetzee. And you have studied James Coetzee's writings in your MA already, Delhi University syllabus. So you can refer that also, how Coetzee is also talking about that madness of history. Okay, Thinking Apartheid, in his article Thinking Apartheid, how he is, that is chapter 9, and by his collection of essays. So according to Mann, I again shift here, according to Mann, 1958, this is the product of marginal situation which implies the coexistence of something wanted, the denial of that want. However, late in 1995, Rice criticized uses the rational choice model of, what is this rational choice model? We'll just see later on. Of arguments based on methodological individualism. This model has not given adequate attention to the fact that individuals from minority and ethnic groups can negotiate and reconstruct their identities to take advantage of the opportunities that are otherwise denied to them. Latin studies, which also took empirical evidence from India's untouchables, argues that the distinct identities of marginal groups do not have to disappear to take such advantage. From this perspective, individuals from the non-dominant group were advised to learn ways and means of the host population, the economic and legal front, and to share these values as a strategy to overcome marginal status. So this is how it's easy to understand, how the marginal individuals and non-dominant groups, they tries to learn, ways and means of the host population. You got the point? So those who are non-dominant, those who are marginalized, those who are individuals from the maybe other country, maybe non-dominant culture, community, linguistically isolated, they learn the ways and means of the host population to overcome the legal front also. Otherwise it would have a consequence of their earnings. A similar note, Antonovsky also argued that the marginal man could get adjusted to the dominant group in various ways, and just 1967 studies the case of Anglo-Indians in India and observed that they tried to conceal their identity when they found this is advantage, it is a disadvantage for them. So that's how you need to read it. Actually, this is a very significant and very simple points are being given. On the other hand, that community identification gave them the social and psychological security. However, the claim of the independent agency of marginal man and choice is not without its critics. Giddens, 1991, challenged that separating an individual from the morals resources provided by his group affiliations would affect the criteria of the individual's choice, and he called it existential isolation. The argument took at marginality from the subject's point of view and suggests behavioral and attitudinal changes of the subject as a remedy, failed to problematize structural issues like racial ideology in creating such inequalities. Some scholars, that is Dick Carls and Golowensky, disagreed with the marginal personality argument and argued that a difference in personality disorder among marginalized and non-marginalized individuals are negligible. Therefore, the understanding marginality and psychological disposition of an individual is found to be inadequate if not irrelevant, and sociological dimensions have assumed a more relevant instead. Antonovsky used the marginal situation concept to refer a situation. So here one point I would like to make, and that is very significant. Earlier we were arguing about this, how this they are creating the extreme personalities, how they are creating the extreme personalities because of the non-engagement, non-involvement of the host country. Here, Dick and Clark differ somewhere. They says that, when we talk about the marginal personalities, this ratio is very less. So, it means we can say that most of the people, they try with their conscious and subconscious that they have to ignore those aspects of non-inclusion. They have to ignore the aspects of non-inclusion, and finally they behave in a normal way. And so this kind of marginal personality which is being reflected, the ratio is not being found much more. So that's how. And then we are talking about how this Antonovsky is giving use the marginal situation. What is marginal situation according to Antonovsky? And I read here. What some of the members of one group, for one reason or another, come under the influence of another group, and in resultant interactions, the cultural and racial barriers serve to block full and legitimate membership within another group. It has necessitated more specialized inquiry into the psychological and sociological dimension and complex ways in which they are interconnected. Bankovskaya 2014 has attempted to distinguish these two approaches by emphasizing that psychological approach focuses more on feeling, memories, perceptions and sentiments. Now remember one thing, feeling, memories, perception and sentiments. In contrast, sociological approaches given attention to marginalized individuals' functions corresponding to group of institutions. In the social approach, Bankovskaya identifies two standards. The functional approach, which identifies marginality and individuals, identify participation in the group. This approach emphasizes de-socialization and re-socialization. So you remember these two words again, de-socialization and re-socialization, because these are the words which is going to enhance your vocabulary in your writing answer, marginal personality. The other is actionist approach, where focus is on participation. Actionist approach understood marginality in terms of lack of participation in economic and political decisions and symbolizes symbolic resource of distribution. Hence, deprived inclusion in social structure, that is Germany in 1980. At the structural level, discussion on marginality are linked to conflict tradition that forms the work of Marx and Engels. Shields 1975. Therefore, in marginal situation, isolation of the group are relatively impermeable barriers created by the dominant group instead of the cultural conflict suffered by individuals' assumed importance. Nelkin. These discourses on marginality have focused on unequal distribution to potential resources, issues of power. So now, unequal distribution of potential resources. Because this study of marginality has specific terminology which comes again and again. You please remember those words. What are these specific terminology, vocabulary which is very prominent in the study of marginalization. So, unequal distribution of potential resources, then desocialization, resocialization, then the exclusion of feeling, memories, perceptions and sentiments, and marginal personality. This is host population, non-dominant group, and this is self-pity, insecurity, sensitivity in terms of personality traits, and then this is what? Inferiority complex, dominant culture, non-dominant culture. These are the things which you need to remember clearly. Okay, so issues of power and dominant and through light on the prospects of participation in cultural construction of otherness. This is also a prominent term, otherness, the sense of otherness. So these are in fact you just make a table where you are writing all those words, specifically writing all those words and keeping in your vocabulary and writing as well. So outsider consideration, these are the specific terminology. For example, if you ask me what is difference between math and science, I say math is a number. So we have to go in number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And science is it's like experiment. Moreover, it is a writing thing, but not so much of number. When you go for any particular subject in the science, for example, physics, then number is significant. But otherwise, math is dominant by the number. That's what the point we have to make. This has given adequate attention to subjection, sense of alienation and exclusion. So, adequate attention to the subjection and subjugation. Remember the difference. Subjugation and sense of alienation and exclusion forced by the group, rather than focusing solely on the ambivalence in individual's identity which results from a cultural shock. So I stop here because otherwise the video will be too long. You share this video with your friends and write me a comment. If only positive comments will be accepted. If you write any nonsense, I will remove it from my comment section. So write me the better sense, questions which can improve me and we can do little more. If you are criticizing, if you are making negative comments, I have the control of my YouTube, so I can remove them easily. So don't do this mistake and ask me a question and just help me something which I can improve more. All the best. God bless you. And subscribe the channel Dr. Anju Gurava.